documents my existence and experience. So, um, I'm streaming live from Dubai. This is the second time in 10 years that I've been here. So, the last time I was here was 10 years ago, and it's been amazing to see that nothing has remained the same. Every single thing has changed. I don't recognize anywhere or anything, and I went round the first time. It can be a function of my own, remembrance, but it's also a function, a huge function of these guys don't remain the same. And so that's something I just thought I'll talk about. So the reason why I'm here is because I'm on a program. It's called the International Women Leadership Conference by or with Ibukun Woshika. Phenomenal sessions so far. Phenomenal. There's been, talks around just change. Pastor Sam Adeyemi spoke at length about change management, change, being the change, executing the change, activating it. I know I'm saying all these things that are nice sounding, but it was really around change. Miss Banda came on and validated my my me as a woman in business, as someone who experiences the world as through the eyes of an entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, red nails in the boardroom. I'll pause here to say something. Okay, so I've had some feedback around, it's red nails in boardroom. I should always be red nails, and hey, look at that. I take the feedback, be on brand, all of that. The most important thing is to understand that it's really a mindset, and it's an idea, it's a concept around having the boldness to be a woman in your full element in the workspace, letting people experience the full breadth of your femininity, your intuition, God feel, all those things that are special to women. Okay, not to say at this point that they're not special to men and men don't have God feel and all of that. There's a certain level of intuitiveness, which has been validated by a lot of researchers, that women have, and that when they bring it to the fore, it makes a difference. So that's the essence. So, but I have heard and I will comply. So going back to the program I'm here on, she talked about, so back to Mrs. Aoshika now. Mrs. Aoshika came on and talked about just reflecting, because how do you know where you're going to without knowing where you're going to? How do you know the way without knowing where you're going to? So there were a few questions she asked, and I'll just, go over some of them. These are some of the things that over the course of the next few days I'll be reflecting on and just establishing again, because not because they're new, it's just because the work to get it done, it takes a lot of introspection, time, stillness, and honesty. And these are some things that one or two we try not to do often. Being still, being honest with ourselves, where we are at, what we're doing, all of that. So these are the questions. Question 1, and there were 4. Where are you right now? Not in terms of physical location where, I'm in Dubai and you're in, you're where you are. It's really around, Onyinye, where are you? What's your truth today? If you can't establish here and now, you cannot establish there and then. And if there and then is the goal, how do you know what the gap is between here and there to be able to, fill it out? She talks about doing a gap analysis. She talked about, you know, being truthful, stating your truth as at today, honestly, without any embellishments, without the need to sound a certain way or be a certain way. Night. That was refreshing. So, to their own self be true during this whole process, right? So the second question, who do you think I am? Who do you think that I am? You get a lot of feedback from the marketplace. You get a lot of feedback, which is something I just addressed, right? About the feedback on my brand. You get a lot of feedback from your family, friends, loved ones, haters, lovers, all sorts of people. How do you filter the core of who you are out of that? Because how people experience you too is part of who you are. Because you are being that person to this, you are being a certain type of way to this person. So that is who you are as well. That feedback is so relevant too. So who do you think I am? And then the other side to it is also who, beyond where I am right now, it's also around my own thoughts around who I think that I am, alongside who other people think I am. So, third question. Sorry. Third question, Onyinye. Where do you think you're going? Where do you think you're going? With the answer to this question, you know who to keep around you, what to start doing, how to hasten, how to course correct. Where do you think you're going? That's a question to answer. She went further to say that the clarity will help you sort of really hone in, on where it is, what you need to be doing to get there. Again, another gap analysis, right? Hey, what are the kind of people that you need around you to get there? At this point, she said something about, okay, it's the next point. The next point was, how do you want to finish? And she said something about dying empty. And I held on to that because, I don't want to get to heaven, of which that's the goal. And then there were things I could have done or done better that I didn't get to do. People I could have touched in terms of impact and places I could have gone. I think that's the one that's topmost on my head. And without doing this kind of exercise, you really don't know the other things, right? But topmost, I want to see the world. I really, really want to see the world. I want to experience everyone's culture. Everyone. I kid you not. There's a woman on Instagram who, at the age of 70 and some years, she's been to every single country of the world. Every single country of the world. Maybe not every single country, right? Because there's some that I'm like, but I want to see, I want to feel what others feel. I'm not scared of being experimental with food. I'm not scared of acceptance, because I accept myself. That was what another speaker said. She talked about this speaker, very inspirational women on the panel, by the way. She talked about being the first woman to do a lot of things, she was in defense in the US and then left that job, went to a dream job, left that because it wasn't her dream. It was a generic dream job. The 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 kind of self-will to be able to walk away from that, from a lot of money, from powerful people, you really need to know yourself. and so and so I think that she said something about accepting herself, knowing herself, seeing herself, hearing herself. That's her affirmations, being kind. She's my kind of girl. I believe if we do a personality check, she's an empath as well. I am one. Hey, shout out to all the empaths. She talked about kindness as a virtue, as a value that she holds. In terms of not having worked with a lot of older white men, and I count it because there are different sets of values that you can use to qualify someone. So she talks about that, and kindness, leading with kindness is a very tough thing. Okay, so she talked about accepting herself before other people accept her. So that was the point I was trying to make around, even if I go to your country or your city and you're looking at me funny, I accept myself already. I didn't need your own. I don't need yours. Okay? And so seeing herself, looking in the mirror and establishing that she's visible to herself and she can see all the glory of herself, and hearing herself, so that when people start to speak over her voice in a meeting, or she hasn't said something, it's not validated by the person that's hearing it, she has heard herself. So powerful, so simple, so powerful, so simple and so powerful. So so I went on to just really, so that's where I see myself finishing. I'll just conclude on that. That's one of the things I see myself finishing in. I need to really write a document that I will sign and say, this is it. My reality as of today. A document that can be updated, by the way, because who I am at 36 in March 2024 is not anywhere close to who I'll be in a year, in 6 months, in a year, in 10 years, and at the end of my life. Nowhere close. So my dreams, yes, they are, where am I going to, how to clarify the things I need to be doing and, be on about my business. But it's a life document, so I have to give myself the grace to be able to update my reality per time. So that's going to be a life document. What do you want to do before 40, before 45, before 60, before 50 self? At 50, what do I want to have experienced? I had written down the things I want to do by 40. And I said to myself that I will give myself an amazing birthday present if I accomplish those things. Amazing. Okay, let me say it. Let me say what I said. I said that if I accomplish A, B, C, D, and they're listed out, a live document, that I will have my 40th as a destination birthday with my friends and family, and it'll be somewhere in Europe with pristine beaches and a lovely, lovely time, you know. For some of my family members, this will be such a great experience. For some of my friends too, because converging like that, as at today, outside of Nigeria, we have not done. So that's a goal that is personal, but it's also extended, right? Yeah, and it'd be a joy to make that happen by my 40th. So I have work to do. Work. But the thing about it is coming here and hearing her say, how do you want to finish? 40 is not the end. 40 is not close to the end. 40 is in 3 years' time. There's work to be done. I think that I did that goal setting so that I know exactly what I'm doing 3 years, within the next 3 years. But over the next 10 years, you have to be more long term. If it was a business, you do a forecast. You would observe the environment. You would also ensure that you are still enough yourself, because if you only observe the environment, you will not plant. There are things to be planted. If it was only about the environment, I will not be here today. I will not, because the environment is saying Dubai government does not give Nigerian females within my what's it called, visa. But it's more long term than that. A holiday is incorporated in this trip, but it's not the full. It's not the full. So if you're doing a long term and more strategic plan around your life, Onyinye, you'll realize that there are more long-term investments to do now. In 20 years, where do I see myself? I'll be 57. Where do I see myself? What do I see myself doing? Because there's also seeing the world, which is the one example I've given, seeing the world, but there's some seeing of the world and experiences that I cannot have when I'm 57. So there's some of those experiences that time is of the essence now. I gave an example on our intergenerational table where I said, they asked the question about what are you scared to do? And so what are you afraid of as a millennial? And then what are you afraid of as a Gen X? And they asked other generations. And the older women said, oh, they're scared to color their hair. Ha! And I saw a genuine fear, because there's the judgment about, yeah, why are you coloring your hair? What are you doing? Society people will talk. There's that fear. There's also the fear around just what are you trying to portray as a person? Did you not have your youth to do the exploration and crazy things? The second example they said was they're scared to fly out of an airplane, bungee jumping. And these are things that they haven't done. And because they have exceeded the time, they wouldn't do. Do you know how I had already crossed out bungee jumping? I'm so scared. I will not do it. Blah, blah, blah. People have done it. Yes, maybe there have been 1 or 2 accidents, and people will really just hone in on the negatives and say, they also hone in on their personal fears. Oh my God, it's so scary. It is scary. It is facing your fear. It is owning your fear. And in doing a physical thing that you can own your fear and face it, you sort of tell yourself that this fear, I got you. I am your leader. I am conquering you. So you will do it That gave me a wake-up call. Not able to present a certain way in society because of your age. So that's why when you see older ladies on Instagram, maybe gymming and being buff or dressing a certain type of way and just putting it out there, they are the exception, which is why they would trend on Instagram. So a lot of African middle-aged women are experiencing things now that, or have passed the age to experience some things that I haven't gotten. I'm still within the age to experience. So in doing a long-term gap analysis, I have to think about psychosocial. I have to think about emotional. I have to think about physical too. It is amazing to know that the reality of an African woman in her middle 40s, mid 50s, approaching 60s, 70s, super different. You would think that they will just be wise and they will want to just pass on the wisdom to the other generation. But no, it's not only that. There's a change that happens within them that you cannot reverse. And it will happen. It will happen to me too. So, where do you want to finish, Onyinye? In doing this, one of the panelists, talked about what are your personal values so generally on the panel, they were talking about personal values and some of the things. That's when this lady said, one of her personal values that she just takes for granted the fact that your values should include integrity. It should include honesty, loyalty. But also, she said kindness, and that one stuck because someone then asked a question to the panel to say, as a young executive, you're also female. How do you ensure that your kindness is not taken for granted or is not mistaken to be softness? And then this other lady, she came on and said, that you're kind doesn't mean that you cannot be ruthless. That you're kind doesn't mean that when there's a decision to be made, you will not make a business decision. That you're kind doesn't mean any of that. You're kind as a personal virtue. It will impact on the business, but there are things that can come in front to the fore and that can go to the back. That's how I understand it. Kindness must not be mistaken for softness. And two realities can coexist. In executing business strategy and ideas and being in the workplace and being in the boardroom, you can. It was so validating because she said you can actually be as... She did use the word ruthless, but I want to use why do I want to use a softer term? Why not ruthless? The softer term I was going to use was you can be firm, you can be stern. You know your onions, you can stand. Because you will learn things, you will be things to people, you will experience things that you have to steel yourself. Your character has to be formed because it will take a beating. It will take a shaping. There's a honing of your character. So character will be honed, but your values need to remain because at the core, you need to be the person that you say you are. So if you go through where are you right now, what do you think you are, where do you think you're going, and how do you want to finish? It's defining your core. It's also defining your values. But when you interact in the business environment, when you interact with people, when you go for your board meetings, when you do business, there's a shaping, there's a honing of your character that will be done. Is this character and is this internal strength that you have in having defined it and hold it, that you'll be able to walk away from powerful people when they're not aligned with you. There's a parallel. There's something powerful about that. Being self-aware enough to be able to walk away from people and their money. Because people will insult you by trying to buy you. And in trying to buy you, they shut you down. Keep you quiet. I own you. You will tell people what I want you to tell people using your own social capital. You have to know yourself enough to use your social capital for the things that are aligned with you, that fluid with you, as opposed to parallel. You get me? Okay, so the final point on that is, in confronting power, you need to become powerful too. And it's this work of being honest, taking time out to think and reflect in quietness, without distractions. That is when you can really pull out from your deep recesses the truth about you. So, the lady from Rwanda, fantastic talk. Ms. Awushika did a phenomenal, and her team did a phenomenal job picking these panelists. I'll pause here to say, I learned a dance during the conference. Why is that important to say now? I don't know, but I love to dance, though. When they said, come and just shake your body and, let the blood flow, I was happy too. Why didn't I go up on the stage when they said, everyone come up? I felt my feet glued to the ground. And I gave the excuse in my head that, your table was so far away from the stage. Irony. Because if I still wanted to join them, I would. Anyways, I think I'll put that video on Instagram. Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool. What was the song? I will remember. So she said, in Rwanda, they have this value system. Agachiro. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's called Agachiro and Kachacha. I'm trying to use their their accents as much as possible to pronounce it, but Agachiro and Kachacha. Agachiro means self-worth, dignity, and self-reliance. Not putting your eye on somebody else or depending on someone else to do the things that you want to do. Depending on someone else. Let me tell you the story that just came to my mind. It's not a story, it's actually a scripture. Let me recite it. And God is able to make all grace, every favor, and earthly blessing come to me in abundance, so that I may always and in all circumstances and whatever the need be, self-sufficient, requiring no aid or support, and furnished in abundance for every good work and charitable donation. Self-sufficient. There's virtue in it. She talked about courage to forgive, talked about courage to dream big, and talked about the courage to do the right thing. Reflecting on Rwanda's story from 1994 to 2024. 20 years of growth, 20 years of doing the right thing, so that they are now 20th, ranking 20th in the ease of doing business for countries, from where they were at 158 at the bottom 20 years ago. There was an intentionality about building that. It goes back to defining. She also said something that validated me about leadership with courage doesn't mean that you have all the answers. I'll just put this in front of you so that I'm not looking to the side and you're wondering what. Oh, leadership with courage doesn't mean you always have the questions, the answers to all questions, but you have to be brave enough to try, to explore, finding out. She also said that in finding the courage to dream big, okay, there's intentionality, I've talked about that. Courage to forgive, obviously, you may not have all the tough answers to the tough questions, or the wise answers to the tough questions, but there's courage to explore, and they have explored. Uganda has explored with the friendship bench, where now their suicide rate has reduced. Rwanda explored this with Kachacha. Being able to bring to justice the people that did wrong with wisdom. Because just give an example of, if we put everybody that participated in the genocide in prison, homes will become prisons. Then the people in prisons will be more than people outside. So you have to balance justice with reality too. Balancing that act. She said, have the courage to be. One other lady came and said, okay, she finally encouraged to do the right thing. She said, it can be lonely and difficult. And I underlined difficult. I don't know why. I thought about something. I underlined difficult because the courage to do the right thing in circumstances can be super difficult. It's easier to go with the flow. It's easier to just not care. It's not easy, and it's lonely, and it's very difficult, because in their case they were calling powers, world powers, to justice, calling them out on their participation during the genocide. It took 20 years for France to apologize to them for their participation after being called out almost immediately. 20. You're standing there looking like a fool for 20 years, saying you did the wrong thing as a smally country in quotes, calling world powers, and they did the right thing in the end. It takes courage to hold people to account like that. But you know what? It takes more courage to hold yourself to account when you've done the wrong thing. It takes courage to be questioned and answerable as a leader. It does. In my small corner of the world. There's sometimes that, I've been given feedback about, there's certain ways that you do stuff, and, it's perhaps slows the work down, and you know, if I was swallowed now, because it was a tough feedback. It was feedback that I wasn't ready for. It was to know that I was the one that was slowing work down, or not being the best thing since sliced bread to the business. That was tough feedback to get. But I took it gracefully. Hopefully, I did. I took it gracefully, and I stepped away, because the solution was to step away from that process, and I did. And when I see the things that I could have said to slow things down, I swallow, because I'm like, I've given them this feedback. I'll hold them to account, but I need to let them make mistakes and let them learn according to their pace. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the work has to be done. Done is better than perfect. So those, change doesn't happen in one activity, so you would have to be consistent with it. You would have to be consistent with it. And the thing that stuck out to me, another thing that stuck out to me, was that you have to be the one that says, I will change. Initiate the change, because the only thing that is certain in this world is change, as well as death and taxes. But change, right? So if change is certain, you may as well grab the bull by the horn and say, you will change, Abby. Oh yeah, let's change. So be prepared for it ahead of time. And in being prepared for it, you are going to take steps to say, when it arrives at your doorstep, who moved the cheese would come to mind that, look, instead of waiting for this cheese to finish, I'm going to go and look for where there's more. She said to me that, some victories are just not worth having. And I thought about it, and I'm like, yep. Said, keep learning. That's something that, yeah. And I got some, and then after a while, I think I think the cumulative things I've been hearing just struck a chord with me, and then I sort of zoned out and started minuting on my notebook about things I wanted to accomplish in Sycamore to initiate change. She also said something, the moderator said, I don't know what provoked her to say this, but she told everybody, she said, let nobody, and then she goes, nobody, let nobody kick you out of the house that you built. And she made this example and said, it can be a physical house, it can be a family, it can be about your business. Apply it the way you want. But she now said, let nobody kick you out of the house that you built. That is a silent experience women have across a silent general experience that women have. And I'll leave it at that. My word to you, repeating what she said to us, is let nobody kick you out of the house that you built. So in writing, and she said to acknowledge he for she's, my boys, Tunde and Maiwa, they are definitely he for she's. And I don't know that I've acknowledged it enough. They are he for she's for sure. Those are men, he for she's in business. They are. I am blessed to have them, and here I am 5 years later saying that, but it's been a long process to get here. And I think fundamentally you have to just have a thing about you as a man that I will protect, honor, and serve women in any way I can. And so it's not just your wife or your daughters or your family members. It's also women that work with you in business, women that serve on around you, to honor them and protect them, and to ensure that their experiences are not negative. I came up with ideas. I was just writing. That's why I love the experience of pen and paper, because if it was my phone, it'd be like, if I'm chatting away and I don't care about the judgment of, oh, you're chatting away and but the pen to paper, the smell of paper, I think, is that weird that I spent so much time in the library in 2005. If you know, you know, in CU library in 2005. And I love the smell of books, hard copy books. Like there's a smell. Okay, I'm gonna stop that right now and move on. So someone said something about each one lift one. She said, raise the male children that you would want to marry. She said also, she doesn't take overdrafts with family. She takes balance of payment. So I would train, but you would learn enough to train the next person. Man your post, be exposed, see things. They talked about, Pastor Adeyemi talked about travel as an investment. Was he the one? Yes, he was. Amongst the other things he said, travel as an investment. Yes. See the world. Expose your mind. Expose your mind. Someone else said something about, I'm not a statistic. I wrote down, I don't know if this person said it, but it jolted something in my mind to say, I'm not a statistic because I'm a woman on the board. I'm valid here. The world has conspired to bring me to this point. Not only because I'm a woman to check the diversity box, but because there's something in me that I need to bring out. Okay? So I wrote it down. Let's get to Pastor Adeyemi. What can I say? I think that's the first time I'm actually listening to him talk. And that was amazing. Should I take this on in a different thing? I don't know. This is the longest video I've ever done. I will continue. Let's take a break. Okay. Now, he talked about shaping your habits as a means to shape your life, because if your life is shaped by the things that you do every day, then you have to be conscious of the things that you do every day. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. He talked about women are reconciliatory leaders, so the world needs us. Men have led the corporate world, in quotes, for so long and defined it the way that they think, so they're logical, so it has to be logical. But if women too are now in the corporate world and leading, then we cannot conform. The world has to be renewed. We can't conform because it's a man's world. I'm having so much fun. We can't conform because the world they have built is not for us. So we have to come with our voices. We have to reconcile our own reality with theirs and build a different world where my daughters will work and thank me for the contributions that I made. So you don't have to wait for Rosa Parks to rise from the dead and come and institute change. Where you are, Onyinye, where you are responsible to create the world that your daughters, nieces, goddaughters, and their cousins will live in, and thank you for the change that you made on their behalf. Yep. He also talked about anyone can be a leader because you're made in the image of God, and you're not, it's not special to anyone. Talked about being an introvert and just thinking that, oh, it's just the extroverts that will make great leaders, and you cannot do certain things because you're a certain type of personality. I don't think so. You're an introvert doesn't, I'm an introvert, actually. So, some social settings, I thrive when it's more intimate, when it's more close circuit. You see all these WhatsApp groups, you're multiple people from multiple cities in the world. It's not a bad thing. I likely be quiet. So if I know myself so much, I have to lean into my strengths so that I am a better leader for it, as opposed to manufacturing myself or remanufacturing myself to suit a different personality. That's unnatural to me. It's unnatural. So what that would look like is being authentic in my leadership. Is being authentic to myself first. Is knowing who I am, knowing my core, knowing my values, ensuring that I've defined it and owned it. Then I can lead. And then the people that, and not just take a walk, the people that would then be attracted to this would be people who can relate to specific things that I am doing as a leader that are different. Authenticity is such a big, huge, big ticket item for me. Being authentic. Being authentic. You talked about fearlessness being, okay, Ariana Huffington, not the one you're thinking, talked about fearlessness as a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. That's so beautiful, by the way. Shout out to Ariana. If you do what you fear, the death of that fear is certain. When you can bungee jump. I probably would. I will, actually. I came to Dubai, and Fefe had, said, oh, she jumped out of an airplane. And I said, oh, that's something I would love to do too. I need to go and check if I'm within the weight limit. But when I came here, and I think I repeated it to someone, be careful. Be careful who you repeat your dreams to. I repeated it to someone, you want to jump out of the plane? I'm not with you. It's so scary. I think I repeated it on that intergentable. The seed of doubt was sown. Didn't somebody else come back rejuvenated? Isn't that the goal? So why take on the negative projections from the world? You're more powerful than you think you are. And that key is in you. You have to own it. You have to own it. Talked about change being certain. Everyone is changing. Don't fizzle out with your past success. Okay, so Sycamore is 5 now. Great, we've celebrated. Awesome. Oh yeah, what's next? How do we get to 10? How do we get to 20? What's in it for legacy? What's its succession plan? You need to initiate change faster than it happens naturally. Blessed are the flexible, for they shall bend, but not break. And then you bent. That was beautiful. It was so funny. Oh my God. Age and success increase complexity. Then he now said vacation is an investment. And so, that was a big ticket thing because, yes. Talks about what brought you here will not take you there. So learn, Onyinye. What brought you here will not take you there. That was anchor the change on culture. I was thinking about bedrock at this point. Have a bold vision for change. Create a plan. If you do 2x, if your goal is just 2x, you won't get there. If your goal is 100x, 100, you likely fall around 41, which is an x that Sycamore has grown in within 5 years. 41x. We kept it open. So what's the big, bold vision? What's the big, bold vision? And then he talks about institutionalizing change. And then I'll go to the final thing that we did. Pastor Adeyemi's session was amazing. Talked about the intergenerational differences and what we expect from the older generation and why there's a coarseness when we are relating across generation, especially women. And I thought, and that's not something I said then because I recently just thought about it, that they have a difficulty in passing on the baton. I'll explain. The women in the X generation were fresh in the corporate world, especially African women, right? Where your place was expected to be in the kitchen, and they were in the kitchen as well as the corporate world. So what they were trying to pass on was archaic, was unpractical to us millennials. You have to be a certain type of way at home. They defined submission through their eyes. Submission as subservience to men who generally were lord and master and sort of sat on their thrones, in quotes. I'm painting a picture, and just said, you know what, even though you're working 8 to 9 in the night, you will still come home, you will cook banga from scratch, and you please me all night long. There's a reality in this time that some of those services can be outsourced, and it's not the pleasing overnight. The focus was, you see that banga from scratch, why? Would it taste the same if somebody else cooked it? Isn't the goal to be nourished? So must I be the one that would pound the palm kernel? That's the reality that the older women should think about when they're, or be flexible about when they're passing on their wisdom. That, what's the goal? Ensure your husband is nourished. Abby, your children are healthy. How do you want to get there? Be flexible, bend, but don't break. These women are rich in experiences. They are. But you see, when the new mixes with the old, they birth something extraordinary. There has to be an infusion. Now, if somebody came and said, from horses, we'll go to squares. So if I turn the square on this side, it moves forward. If I turn the square on this side, it moves forward. As opposed to circles where tires were made from. Then to be like, oh, that's the next step in evolution. No, it was not. The next step was a big jump. So sometimes it has to be a big jump. The reality cannot be the next logical step. And this is not to say that you always have to have a staying help, because some people are averse to it. I understand that you always have to have a staying help to cook all or gas food and all of that. It was a huge debate. We were there for almost an hour, But women in my generation are rejecting the idea as it is giving slave more than wife. They did have lovely things to say about what they love about us. Talked about our creativity, our boldness, daring, versatility, networking skills. It talks about our vibrancy, love for colors, acceptance of colorful life, energy, exposure, tenacity, and knowledge of new things, including tech. It was lovely to hear. Because you take some things for granted, right? It was very lovely to hear. They want us to preserve culture, to have respect for history, and just respect in general. And I think we can do that. I think that there were some women that I saw in this conference that, because we've all paid our money and we've come to this conference, it's like, it's like, hey, hi, hello, ma. Eh? In Nigeria, you wouldn't do that. There's a reality of the culture that we have, Dubai or not. So I understand that. Preserve the culture. Someone talked about being ashamed of me because I don't understand Igbo. First of all, keep your negative projections to yourself. Igbo is a great cultural asset. Is it a competitive global world asset? No. Is it something that if I don't speak on a global level, I would be at a disadvantage? Maybe not. I understand where she was coming from, but okay. So that's me. One of the cultures, languages though, that I would get my children to learn, Mandarin. Of course, English, no doubt, right? But Mandarin. 1/8 of the world's population speaks, more than 1/8 of the world's population speaks it. So if you want to be competitive, the future looks like you're going to be speaking the language that everybody's speaking. French. Yoruba, believe it or not, because it doesn't only exist in Africa, and I didn't say Nigeria, in Africa. It doesn't only exist in Africa. So if you want to interact with some other people, it's slightly different on the islands, but it's an international language. Spanish. Have I said French? Portuguese. Maybe not so much, but there are languages to understand. Now, remember that I said I want to see the entire world. So in seeing the entire world, this list will be honed and updated. Things I want to know, cultures I want to pass on, not just mine, but other things that I've learned. So I hear these older ladies, I understand and I respect it. And I understand. One talked about talking back, that was smart-mouthed. That's feedback. Another one talked about dressing decently. Ooh, that one, yeah. Thankfully, the two younger ladies on the table were dressed to the T. So shout out to the other babe on the table, Omoleri. So some of the things that we said was that we took away from that was to increase intergenerational friendships, because there's the richness of their experience that we can glean from, and there's the vibrancy to keep them going, to encourage them where they feel like they can't color their hair. Why? Why not? Oh, your husband will what? Oh, you will not be accepted in the office. Why? Oh, your children will say what? What do you want? Be more flexible, take breaks, blah, blah, blah. They said they'll take more time to listen, to understand, not just listen. Active listening to understand context and our challenges, our own challenges, so that they can be in this intergenerational friendship for real, for real. Speaking of for real, they said they will take time to learn our lingua with patience, and they'll be more tolerant and less condemning. And with that, day 2 was concluded. I think that it's been amazing. I thank God for the opportunity to have come here. Thank God for the time of work, to be able to lean on my colleagues for work in this moment, to be here. I don't trade this experience for anything. It's been amazing, and it is amazing. So off to prepare for, yikes, I think day 3 has started actually. Off to prepare for day 3. Let me go grab something to eat and maybe coffee, because the day is long, and then we'll see.